In 2014, in search of a lifestyle that was closer to nature, we left our busy life in the southeast of England and moved to a remote part of Scotland. Here, our lives could be more in harmony with the flow of the seasons. This is our story.
Being out here in the woods is what Druidry is about for me. What does it mean? Is it not an old religion that has died out, sort of following the Romans? But the Druidry that I follow and practice is a modern-based Druidry. It's not a Reconstructionist Druidry. It's a Druidry based and developed in the last 50 years. But essentially it's a nature-based spirituality. My wife and myself are both members of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And it's quite normal for people to say, well, what is Druidry about? What is it? And the amusing thing is, there is no dogma. So you can ask 100 Druids what they think it's about, and you'll probably get 100 different answers. I can hear your question. What do Druids believe? Well, it's a non-dogmatic religion. The Gwersai, that's the Welsh name for lessons that we get, allow us to accept, experience, reject, ignore whatever seems appropriate to us. There is no compulsion to believe in anything. And so what happens as you work through the exercises that are given, some of those things will resonate with you, and others you think, no, it's not for me. And within the order, that is a perfectly reasonable way of behaving and a perfectly reasonable perspective to have. My brand of Druidry is very much based on an animistic view of the world. So my view of animism is that everything has a consciousness. Even the rock on which I was just sitting, this tree, the plants, the birds, even possibly the air and the water itself. In fact, I definitely feel water has consciousness, and there's been experiments by a Japanese professor, Matsui, I think it is, who's shown that you can influence the molecular structure of water by your relationship with it. Another wonderful example of the intelligence of nature is the oak trees in this area, right across this area, produced a huge crop of acorns last year. It's called a mast year. It happens periodically. It's done because it produces such a large crop that there's too many for all the predators, all the animals that actually eat the acorns. There's just too many. So there's a lot that survive and it propagates the species. But the question remains, how do they actually know? How do the trees coordinate their efforts? Because that's what they do. They coordinate their efforts. Is it done through the terpenes they release into the air? Is it done through the mycelium underground? No one really knows. But it happens, and it happens on a regular basis. Also happens with beech trees. So that's probably sums up my view of Druidry for me, what it means to me and how I work within it. And because I think everything is conscious, that then leads me to a position whereby would I want to do something to someone else that I wouldn't want doing to me? You know, the old do as you would be done by. So I behave in a way that is naturally respectful to everything. Everything. If I have to light a fire, then I'm respectful to the earth on which I light it. When I bathe in the river, which I do every day, I'm respectful to the river and I sing a song of thanks to the river. So that's the way that Druidry infuses my life. So the question then is, what do Druids do? How do we celebrate our place in this natural world? Well, we have 8 seasonal celebrations, roughly every 6 weeks. 4 of them are astronomical, and 4 of them are agricultural. We've just gone past the autumn equinox. The next festival will be Samhain, which most people will associate with Halloween. That's the time when we believe the veil between this world and the next is thin, and we're able to relate to and possibly have guidance from our ancestors. Traditionally, it was a time when the animals that weren't going to be kept over the winter were killed and salted down for the hard days ahead. Just running through them quickly, we then get winter solstice, which is the shortest day. The one that many Druids look forward to is Imbolc. It's another agricultural festival, but it's actually celebrating the first ewe's milk. It's symbolised in our tradition by the hazel catkins dropping and becoming what we call lambstails, and snowdrops. Following Imbolc, we get the spring equinox. Spring equinox again is when light and dark are in balance, but we're going into the lighter summer months. Beltane is the 1st of May, and the 1st of May is always associated with festivals and delight and all sorts of hijinks, and traditionally with sex. That's followed by the summer solstice, where again it's a time of great celebration. Lunasa, which follows approximately 6 weeks after the summer solstice, so sort of early August, is the time of harvest, the first harvest. It's when we see the fields being cut and the grain being stored away. And then it brings us right back to the autumn equinox, which is just passed. So that completes our wheel. We call it the eightfold wheel of the year. So why do we celebrate these things? What's important about them? As I said, I see myself as an animist, and I think the one thing that would unite all Druids is that we have a love of nature, we love to be out in nature, and we see ourselves as very much part of nature, part of that web of life. And we realise that if we harm that web of life, then essentially we harm ourselves. So in the modern world, it's actually very difficult to keep that connection. You know, if you're living in an urban environment where you actually don't have the nature that I'm fortunate enough to have that surrounds me in a big overt way, you've just got maybe a few plants growing through the cracks in the pavement, or you've got a window box or a house plant, then it's difficult to keep that connection. And the idea behind and the benefits behind following the wheel of the year is that you are constantly updating yourself with the natural cycles. And of course, those natural cycles apply to us. They apply in any way that we can think of. You know, we go through those cycles from birth to death, and we go through those cycles on a yearly basis. Our infirmities, in my case, I'm an old man, our infirmities increase. Emotionally, our lives are constantly changing. Once you've made the step to that realisation that this is completely normal, then it becomes less of a problem. So Druidry, like any spiritual practice, is about actually coming into harmony with yourself. Because the only place that you will find peace and stillness and quiet is actually inside. My sense of well-being and contentment comes from being in connection and in communion with the natural forces that shape my life, so that I am part of the web of life, and I know that I am part of the web of life. If you've got as far as this and gone right through to the end of this video, then you've obviously found something in there to interest you. And if you would like to be kept up to date, then just press the subscribe button and give me a like. And I'll see you on the next one.